Sorry, my apologies. Let me cross over to Clinton Yebwa in the Subin constituency. Clinton, what exactly can you tell us as far as the Subin constituency is concerned? So Clinton Yebwa is coming to us from the Subin constituency in the Ashanti region. Clinton Yebwa, please unmute. What is the situation like in Subin?
All right, Benjamin. Currently in Subin, I am at the Central International School polling station, which is one of the 175 polling stations in the Subin constituency. And currently there have been a split, an almost sharp split between the candidature of Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia and the former President Mahama. Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia claims 179 votes, whilst Don Mahama claimed 154 votes. And that is something that the voters have spoken to say it's something unheard of in the constituency. And so there seems to be a very close, tight context here in the constituency. But since morning, in my observation with the polling stations that I have been visiting, three key observations were made. One, delayance of electoral materials, which delayed the voting time almost an hour. Some or majority of the voting centers started, after more than 1 hour after voting time. And also, there were records of low security. You could visualize the low security in most electoral areas that I visited, and also slow turnout. Very low turnout were recorded according to most of the presiding officers that I've spoken to.
Now, but the interesting thing there is that for the first time, and he says some people are even surprised about it, that at that polling station, you would have Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia getting 179 of the votes. And interestingly, the NDC's candidate, John Dramani Mahama, getting 154, unheard of. So that is a surprise there. Low voter turnout, but like I said earlier, the low voter turnout may end up favoring one side over the other. Definitely. But before we cross over to Jacqueline and Soma Yabwa as well, let's head back into the Joy News studio. Evans, so quite an interesting picture in Subin.
Yeah, it is an interesting picture indeed. And Clinton is really at the heart of it all there. Subin is one of the interesting areas too. But I'm interested, Clinton. I know this particular polling station you are in is not the only place you've been. And when I was in Kumasi, you and your colleagues have been doing a bit of work touring the Ashanti region, and today also. From what you're gathering in many of the other polling stations you've been, what sense you get when you talk to EC officials about the turnout generally, beyond where you are? Do you get a sense that people have turned out in their numbers to vote?
Evans, yes, the low voter turnout is a generic issue with all the about 30 polling stations that I was able to visit in the constituency.
30. That Winston, it isn't a great story there. And then Clinton, stay with us for a second. I'm interested in your thoughts on this.
Yeah, you know,
30 places in the Subin area there.
And it's still low voter turnout. So it actually confirms the trend that we've always known, okay? That, whenever a party is in its second term, that election, you record a low voter turnout, which actually affects the incumbent party. And that's what is playing out. I had Professor Enin saying, because the polling station, these days there are a lot more polling stations and so the votes. But you see, we're looking at the percentages where there are, so for instance, when Avajit was reporting from the Ayawaso West Wogan constituency, he talked about where they were expecting some over 1,000 voters and 530 something showed up to vote. You're looking at a little over 50% coming out there to vote. That's the, conversation we're having now. And it's indicative of a major trend nationwide.
But here's the thing that I'm curious about. Considering the amount of time that both Dr. Bawumia spent in the Ashanti region, then towards the last few days, you had his running mate, who, by the way, was selected primarily because of his ability to galvanize, because he came from Ashanti region, and they knew way before the elections that that is what they needed in terms of getting their supporters in the Ashanti region to be energized to go out and vote. Of course, this is not the full picture yet.
No.
This is early days yet, and so it's not a region-wide phenomenon. We can't say that for certain. But at least for these small areas that we have sampled, it seems to be an issue. It will be a real problem if by the time the counting is done, generally, it becomes a big deal. But the 30 polling stations in Subin, an area that is, you know,
it's NPP.
NPP,
But
blue,
this is it.
deep blue.
This is it.
That's a concern.
If the Ashanti region records less than 70% voter turnout, the elections will be difficult for the NPP. If there is a less than 70% voter turnout in the Ashanti region, automatically, take this from me, the elections become very, very difficult for the NPP. And you can see at that stage, the NPP would have the realization that this may not just be the election.
And that's Ashanti region. And Clinton, give me again a sense, you there, and you witnessed and you covered the intense campaigning that the NPP did on the ground, all because they were very deliberate to get their members out to vote this year in the elections that is just ended, and counting still happening in many places. You've been to 30 polling stations, and generally you're reporting that the turnout has been low. When you talk to people, when polling started in the morning to now, well, what sense do you get? Why aren't people out, at least in those 30 polling stations you've been? And let's stay with that because we don't want to overgeneralize this. Why are people telling you about why they're not going out to vote as they would normally?
Well, the fact that they say that they are busy going about their day, there are two things that stand out. The first one is for them making a decision between Alan Chermantin and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. They seem to be having conflicted allegiance to the two. And so the best choice for them is to stay away. Now, one of the most reason that many people cited for not voting is also that there were delays of electoral materials. They were there at the polling centers waiting to vote, but then materials delayed, and so they had to get back to their works. And this is how they then decided not to return, or the time probably escaped them.
That's an interesting excuse indeed, but it tells a story, Winston, very good, because I need to go to Boku Central. Stay with me. Yes. Clinton, thank you very much. We'll return to you and the other correspondents there for a sense of what is happening.